Tears and visas. Angela and Michael's 90-day journey ends in divorce court. For more than 2 years, Amanda's life had revolved around a man she had never met in person. She was 54, divorced twice, and living alone in a small town in Georgia. Her children were grown and distant, her evenings quiet, and her heart still full of hope that love could find her again. It started with a friend request on social media, a message from a man named Mikel, 32 years old, from Lagos, Nigeria. His first words were simple: "You have a beautiful smile." What began as a casual exchange slowly turned into hours of conversation every night. They talked about music, about family, about what it meant to feel lonely in a world full of people. Amanda was drawn to his kindness. He listened when no one else did. He called her queen, sent her good morning texts, and told her she was the first woman who truly believed in him. For a woman who had spent years being judged and hurt, those words healed something deep inside. Soon, their connection became the most important part of Amanda's day. She would rush home from work, change into her softest pajamas, and wait for his video call. Sometimes they just sat together on screen, saying nothing, just smiling, letting the silence mean what words couldn't. But love across oceans is never simple. Amanda's friends laughed when she mentioned Mikel. Her family worried she was being taken advantage of. "He's too young," they said. "He just wants a green card." Amanda didn't want to believe it. She said love didn't care about age or borders or race. She said Mikel made her feel seen. Still, doubts would creep in late at night. When Mikel didn't answer his phone, Amanda's thoughts turned dark. She imagined him with someone else, or forgetting her. Then, when he finally called, she'd smile through tears and say everything was fine, even though it wasn't. Mikel, meanwhile, had his own struggles. Life in Lagos was hard. Jobs were uncertain, money was short, and internet connections were fragile. He loved Amanda's warmth, her laughter, and her strength. But sometimes her temper frightened him. She wanted control, to know where he was, who he was talking to, what he was doing every moment. He didn't understand why she got angry so quickly, and she didn't understand why he stayed silent instead of explaining. Despite the tension, they made plans. Amanda promised to bring him to America. She started filling out visa papers, sending money for documents and fees. She imagined the day they would finally meet at the airport. Her running into his arms, tears in her eyes, the loneliness of all those years melting away. In her heart, she believed that love could fix everything. She told her friends that Mikel was different. She said, "This time it's real." And maybe it was, or maybe it was just two lonely hearts, thousands of miles apart, trying to hold on to something that was never meant to survive the distance. When Mikel finally arrived in America, Amanda stood at the airport gate trembling. She had imagined this moment for 2 long years. The long-distance calls, the waiting, the endless promises, all leading to this. As he walked out of the arrival gate, she almost didn't recognize him at first. He looked thinner, more serious than in the photos. But when their eyes met, all her doubts disappeared. She ran to him, holding him tightly, tears streaming down her face. For the first time, love wasn't on a screen. It was real, warm, and standing right in front of her. For a few days, it felt like a dream. They cooked together, took pictures, laughed in the kitchen. Amanda introduced him to her neighbors, proudly saying, "This is my husband." She believed their story, their struggle, had finally been rewarded with happiness. But slowly, the dream began to change. Mikel struggled to adjust to life in America. The small town felt cold and quiet, nothing like the noisy streets he was used to. Amanda wanted him to stay home, to be close to her all the time. She didn't understand that he needed space, that he missed his friends, his language, his life. Money became the first argument. Mikel wanted to work, to earn something on his own. Amanda said he didn't need to, she could take care of both of them. But every time he asked for money, even for small things, her voice changed. "You just came here, and already you're asking?" she said once, and he never forgot that tone. Love started to feel like a cage. Amanda checked his phone, questioned every text, and accused him of talking to other women. Mikel tried to explain, but every word made things worse. He grew quiet, and she mistook that silence for guilt. Their house turned into a battlefield. full of love, anger, apology, and distance all at once. One night, Amanda sat alone on the porch, watching the lights of passing cars. She realized how quickly things had changed. She had imagined love fixing her loneliness, but somehow it made her feel more alone than ever. Mikel, inside, looked at his packed bags. He hadn't planned to leave, not yet, but every day it felt harder to stay. He didn't hate Amanda. He just couldn't breathe anymore. They both still loved each other, in their own broken way, but love was no longer soft or safe. It was heavy, demanding, and full of pain. Every morning they woke up beside each other, but the space between them grew wider. Words became fewer. Smiles became forced. And the woman who once said, "This time, it's real," began to whisper another sentence to herself, one she had promised never to say again. "Maybe I made a mistake." By the third month, silence had become the language of their home. The laughter that once filled Amanda's kitchen had turned into the sound of closing doors, late-night arguments, and the quiet sobs of a woman who no longer recognized the life she had built. Mikel had changed. He stayed out longer, sometimes saying he needed to clear his head. He joined a local soccer group, met new friends, started to smile again, but not the way he used to when he talked to Amanda. She noticed the distance in every look, every word, every empty seat beside her at dinner. For Amanda, it felt like betrayal, even when it wasn't. She had given up everything to bring him here. Her savings, her peace, her pride. And now, the man she once believed was her future, had become a stranger sleeping under the same roof. Arguments became routine. They didn't even start with anger anymore, just exhaustion. Amanda accused him of lying. Mikel accused her of controlling him. She cried, he stayed quiet. She begged for love. He begged for freedom. And somewhere in that storm of emotion, something broke that could never be repaired. One night, after another long fight, Mikel packed his clothes into a small suitcase. He didn't shout. He didn't even look back. Amanda stood by the doorway, shaking, waiting for him to turn around. He didn't. The front door closed softly, almost kindly, like the end of a chapter that had been waiting to finish itself. The next morning, she found his toothbrush still on the counter. For a long time, she just stared at it, as if it was the last proof that he had ever been real. The house felt too big, too quiet, too cold. She tried to call him for weeks, but he didn't answer. Eventually, she received a short message. "I'm sorry. I can't do this anymore. I wish you peace." That was the last time she heard from him. When the divorce papers came, Amanda didn't cry right away. She just sat at her table, reading the words over and over until they stopped making sense. Then the tears came, not the angry kind, but the tired kind, the kind that come when a dream dies slowly. For Mikel, freedom didn't feel like victory either. He found a small apartment, got a job, and tried to rebuild his life. But some nights he still thought about her, about the way she laughed too loud, how she always said, "I love you" at the end of every call, even when she was mad. He missed that, though he would never admit it. Love hadn't failed them. They had failed love. Two people from two worlds had tried to hold on to something bigger than both of them. And in the end, it slipped through their hands, as quietly as it began. Amanda still keeps one of Michael's shirts in her drawer. It doesn't smell like him anymore, but she can't throw it away. Because somewhere, deep down, she still believes that once in her life, she was loved, even if it didn't last. Months passed, and the noise of their breakup slowly faded into silence. Amanda no longer checked her phone every hour. The constant waiting for a message, for an apology, for closure, had finally stopped. What remained was quiet, heavy, and honest. She sold the small house they once shared. The rooms had become too familiar with loneliness. She moved into a smaller apartment closer to town, where no one knew her story. Some evenings, she would sit by the window with a cup of coffee, watching the sunset disappear behind the trees, thinking how something so beautiful could still feel so sad. Friends told her she was lucky to be free, that she could start over again. But Amanda didn't feel lucky. She felt older, softer. She had learned that love could be both a blessing and a wound. That sometimes, the same person who saves you can also be the one who breaks you. Still, she didn't hate Mikel. She couldn't. There were nights when she still whispered his name in her prayers, not out of longing, but out of gratitude, for the little piece of her life that was once filled with warmth, even if it ended in ashes. Mikel, on the other side of the city, was living a quieter life too. He worked long hours, sent money home to his mother, and tried to forget the past. But forgetting is never easy when the past once held your heart. Sometimes, when he heard a woman laugh loudly at a cafe or saw a familiar brand of perfume, memories came rushing back. He would smile just a little, and then look away before the ache could return. He didn't regret leaving, but he also didn't feel victorious. He had come to America chasing love, hope, and a dream of a better life. And along the way, he discovered that love can be just as complicated here as it is anywhere else. Both Amanda and Mikel moved on, but not completely. They carried small pieces of each other. Invisible, unspoken, permanent. The world around them kept turning. New faces, new days, new chances. Yet somewhere deep inside, both of them knew. Some stories don't need a happy ending to mean something. Love doesn't always survive, but it always leaves a mark. And in the quiet moments, when Amanda looks at the sky and Mikel walks home under the streetlights, they both feel the same small truth, that once, against all odds and oceans, two hearts had found each other. And for a while that was enough. Years slipped by like quiet rain. The sharp pain of loss had softened into something smaller, not gone but settled. Amanda had grown used to her own company. She learned to enjoy small things again. Early walks, morning coffee, the sound of birds outside her window. Her hair had turned more silver, her steps slower, but her heart, though scarred, had found a strange kind of peace. Michael's life had changed too. He found steady work at a construction firm, shared an apartment with a few friends, and even started smiling again. Some days he thought about calling Amanda, just to ask how she was, to thank her for everything. But each time, he stopped himself. He believed too much time had passed, and that silence was kinder than reopening old wounds. Amanda never remarried. She told herself she didn't need to. Love had already visited her once. Unexpected, imperfect, but real. That was enough. One evening, she received a letter from Lagos. It wasn't from Mikel, but from his younger sister. The handwriting was neat, formal, uncertain. Inside were a few short lines. Mikel wanted you to know he is doing fine. He speaks of you kindly. He said you taught him how to love without fear. Amanda held the letter for a long time. She read those words over and over until they blurred through her tears. It wasn't a reunion. It wasn't forgiveness. But it was something, a final piece of peace. That night, she sat on her porch, wrapped in a blanket, watching the stars rise over the dark horizon. Somewhere, thousands of miles away, another sky stretched above Mikel. Different stars, same night. And maybe, just maybe, he looked up too. Neither of them would ever know for sure. But sometimes, love doesn't need to return to be remembered. Sometimes, it just lingers, soft, invisible, eternal, like a voice carried by the wind. Amanda closed her eyes, whispered his name one last time, and smiled. Because after all the pain, the distance, and the years between them, she finally understood. Some people don't stay forever. They just pass through your heart long enough to change it.